readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing our second part to our top 10 reads of 2021. Yes, we know it is May, but we didn't make a video last year, so here it is now. Last time we did our first half, this time we're doing our fourth favourite to our first favourite with our Honourable Mentions as well. And Potter has joined us for the beginning. He was in here and I think he wanted a bit of attention, so here he is. You enjoy Potter? Yes he does. So let's get right into it, Ed. What is your fourth favourite read of 2021?
Now he's gone, we can actually have a laugh.
Don't talk about Potter like that.
Okay, just don't tell him I said that. Anyway, the first one for me, so this is number 4 on my top 10 of 2021, is David Gemmell's Midnight Falcon. This was amazing. It's book 2 of the Regante series, and it was so close to Sword in the Storm actually beating this, but this is just amazing. This made me cry. The characters, Bane the Bastard was just amazing character. David Gemmell writes in such a way that you just cannot help but be totally immersed in the characters as much as the world that they are living in. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I absolutely love David Gemmell. His writing is superb. This is kind of inspired by Caesar's Gallic Wars, the mixture of the Roman armies invading the Celtic lands, and you can't help but root for Bane the Bastard and his people over the people of Stone, which is heartbreaking what happens, but yeah, you will shed a tear in this, definitely. The characters are just brilliantly written. What the Sword and the Storm did in book 1 set up Midnight Falcon so nicely. That's why this is in my top reads of 2021.
And Gemmell was an amazing author. Now, fourth on my list is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. You had this on your lower half, but it was in last video, and I'm going to talk about it again. Ed says some great stuff about it, so I'm probably just going to be saying the same things. Basically, it is traditional fantasy. It takes a lot of those tropes, but it reinvents it to bring something completely fresh to the fantasy genre. At first, it seems like a light-hearted romp. So basically, the premise is that there's a group of mercenaries who made a band called Saga, and they were amazing. They were the best of the best, but now they've disbanded and they're a bit beyond their prime, and one of the members, their daughter, is stuck in a siege, and so he wants to get the band back together to save her. And so eventually this is the tale of them getting back together and seeing what they can do. And yeah, so as I said, it is a light-hearted romp, but beneath that it has so much heart as well, which is what elevates it into this list, because otherwise it'd be a great read but I'd probably forget about it soon after. But that heart to it that Nicholas Ames writes so well, those relationships between characters, was just done masterfully, and combined with those traditional fantasy elements, it's an homage to old fantasy, isn't it? And it's just done really, really well, and Kings of the Wild has really stuck for me, and that is my fourth favourite read of 2021.
And my third one is The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie. Now, you all know how much we love the first law on this channel, and I read A Little Hatred, which is book 1 of the Age of Madness, the final trilogy in the first law. Well, hopefully not final, but latest trilogy. Yeah. And A Little Hatred, it was kind of disembarking from the central characters that we had spent so much time with in the first 3 books, and it was like, oh, it's good, you know, writing's great, comes Joe Abercrombie, but they're not Logan, they're not Gloucester, are they? And in The Trouble of a Piece, these characters really take hold of the reader, and there are some epic moments, really hilarious moments, fantastic character delivery moments, as well as probably the biggest battle actually in all of Adua, in all of the Circle, I would reckon, probably. And it's so much fun. Joe Abercrombie is just one of the best writers out there, full stop. Has a style that's very similar to Larry McMurtry, which is wonderful. It's evocative and innovative as well, and it's just a barrel of laughs as well, which is great fun, and it's so good to read. And yeah, The Trouble with Peace is probably it was my favourite kind of book of the last trilogy, I reckon. It has such good high moments, and they just don't let up, do they?
Yeah. If we didn't have the rule that it was 1 book per author, then Trouble with Peace would be on mine as well. Next up, third, I have We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle, the first of the series The Last War, until the last is going to be book 3. It's not out yet. Really looking forward to reading that, side note. But We Are the Dead is an exceptionally well-crafted page-turner of a read, which just adds something fresh to the fantasy genre. I'm going to say that of a lot with whatever genre these books are and I talk about, because something that makes a book amazing is when you feel it's different, isn't it? In whatever way. It could be a small way or a big way, and this is... It adds something to fantasy, in my opinion. It is grimdark, but not gratuitously so. Struggling with my words today, but We Are the Dead, it really just blew me away. I'd heard great things from people like Petrick, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this, but I enjoyed it far more than I expected, and hence, as it's third on my list, you can tell I loved it.
Very nice, Will. And here's number 2. We're getting down to those big numbers, aren't we now? And this is Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield, probably the greatest historical fiction book ever written. It is phenomenal. It's a tale of Thermopylae, but you know, if you've seen 300, that's nothing. This is the real story of it, and it focuses around a character who's talking through. He was on the Spartan side, and he's the last survivor, and he's telling his Persian captors about his experiences during ancient Greece, how he found his way to Sparta, and how he fought during the battle. I believe this is recommended or essential reading in the American Marine Corps. So that says everything. It has such an amazing commentary,
camaraderie,
camaraderie, brotherhood, the military aspects of war, as well as, you know, what really is honor, what is friendship, and why do people fight? What is the point? It is written just so poetically. I found myself just rereading whole excerpts from this, whole paragraphs, whole chapters even, because it was just, you know, when you watch a film, imagine the first scene of Lord of the Rings comes on and you just feel this is going to be amazing. You just have that feeling, and then this feeling, from the very first page, you know what this is going to be, what's going to be in store for you, because it is amazing. It's brutal. It's breathtaking. It's heartbreaking as well, if you know the story of Thermopylae. But it's a riveting read. So,
and I read Gates of Fire this year, and I thought it was exceptional as well. But as it was in 2022, not going to be on this list. But now for me, number 2, as you said, it's getting hard now. The list I put these books probably changes day by day. But today, second place is The Gates of Athens by Gwynne. This tells the tale of a truly remarkable segment of history, a really remarkable sequence of events of the Greco-Persian Wars. We see Marathon and Thermopylae both in this book, and it is told so well by one of the greatest writers of historical fiction, Gwynne himself. And so, as you can tell with the title, The Gates of Athens, we are following people in Athens, as opposed to, we often see Thermopylae and this segment of history told from Spartan perspective, as you can understand why, because Thermopylae, the main players, were the Spartans, and that's what they've become like nearly a myth from that, haven't they? Mm-hmm. But this is told from the democratic to an extent state of Athens, and it's really interesting, following 3 main perspectives, 3 very senior figures in Athens. 2 are Themistocles and Xanthippus, and the other is Aristides. And it's really interesting how they interlink, how they've got their own rivals and their own enmities. But when something greater threatens Athens, they will pull together and they will put them aside. And it's a very inspirational story, and it's just told exceptionally well. And The Gates of Athens is something I'd recommend to anyone wanting to get into historical fiction, as well as those who love their historical fiction. So yeah, now after that, we're going to get into some honourable mentions. Because we had to find a way to sneak a few more books into this list, didn't we?
We like to break rules, hey. My first honourable mention is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now, this I just absolutely loved because it was set in a Mesoamerica fantasy setting, which was really refreshing, and it was just really invigorating to read a fantasy that just felt so unique, so fresh, so different to what had come before it. And I'm really looking forward to the sequel, which I'll be reading hopefully in the next couple of weeks, which will be Fevered Star.
Is out now,
definitely. Yeah. So I mean, what I love is set kind of in one central city. And obviously, like I mentioned, the setting is so different to other fantasy. It's a huge part of why I enjoyed it so much. But the characters were great. The plot was always just marching forwards at a breakneck pace, and I read it in like a day. It was just so easy to devour. So yeah, Black Sun was really, really good, and just narrowly missed out on a top spot.
Oh, all these that you're talking about are on my TBR. The TBR pile grows endless.
So you got things to look forward to.
It does. The first honourable mention for me is The Counsellor by E.J. Beaton. So this is Machiavellian fantasy that explores political intrigue, like nothing I've ever experienced before, especially in the fantasy genre. And thrust into that, there's some incredibly nuanced characters with really lyrical prose that really brings out their characteristics. They're really well fleshed out. So me and Ed were very lucky to get a advanced copy from Julie Crisp, who is E.J. Beaton's agent. And yeah, we thought, okay, this sounds cool, but it was very different, quite outside our comfort zone. Sorry. And then we loved it. So thank you, Julie Crisp, for that. And yeah, it's one of my favourite reads of last year. And I'm really looking forward to the sequel because it's, again, I've said it so many times in this video, it's fresh.
Yeah.
And it's just different from most other things you read. And yeah, it just really caught our attention. And yeah, it's one of those that months after I was still thinking about. And you know when that happens, you've got a good one.
We all love in the fantasy genre to read about characters, don't we? I think you and I don't care as much about the hard magic system. Sometimes we really love the worlds, but the characters are at the heart. And The Counselor is a character book through and through.
Character driven.
I mean, maybe us saying it's political fantasy, we didn't really want to try it, or we wanted to try it, but we weren't used to reading things like that. Maybe actually might hinder it, because really people need to realise it's actually a book about this great cast of characters that all associate with each other, and it's like, imagine living in King's Landing obviously in Game of Thrones. But the whole book is there. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. And there's some exceptional action sequences.
Machinations? Machinations? Is it Mac or Mash?
I know how it's spelled, but
Mash, I know. And the M-A-C-H-I-N.
The English language, huh?
Yeah. The next one for me is The Wolf of Wessex by Matthew Harvey. Now, come on, we all love some Dark Ages Britain. But imagine if True Grit was set in Dark Ages Britain. So, there you go.
Sales pitch.
There we go. But no, it's awesome. Matthew Harvey's a great writer. I mean, really, I was getting a bit burnt out with Viking Age tales that were set in Britain, and then I thought I'd read this as a palate cleanser, as a standalone, and boy, I needed this. It just really hooked me back into kind of realising why I love reading books set in this period, in this place as well. And it really is the story of True Grit, like an old veteran warrior with a great dog. It looks after a person who has lost their way a little bit.
That's
a bit
good
younger,
way to put
a bit
it.
more vulnerable than they are. And it just felt so believable. Matthew Harvey's a great writer, very talented. He captures this sense of character just so well, and he has a great balance in his books. He kind of always has these iconic moments mixed with these moments where the characters really come to shine.
They've got a lot of depth,
exactly, yeah. So yeah, definitely go check this out if you want to read some historical fiction.
And on to my second honourable mention, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. So this has been very, very successful. And I believe Susanna Clarke's debut was Jonathan Strange and Miss Norrell, which is a massive tome. That's like 1,000 pages. And as you can see, a bit different. It's like 100 pages, 200 pages actually, maybe. And
300?
so maybe
Could be 400.
Maybe, definitely not. But this is a book that caught my attention in the first few words and held on to it into the very last page. I mean, it's so hard to describe what happens, and if I actually did, then it would be spoilers, because part of the experience with this is going into it blindfolded, and I think just let it take you away, because I had no idea where the story is going, but that made it so much more entertaining. And I love how Piranesi tears down the conventions of genre, but in a way that was really entertaining, and she did it naturally. I think some authors do tear down the conventions and everything that you expect. They subvert your expectations, but sometimes it feels like that's their aim to do it. But this just came naturally, and Piranesi was so interesting. And I actually read it because I watched Philip Chase's review of Piranesi, and I was like, this sounds like a read for me. And yeah, so Philip Chase, thank you for that.
The last honourable mention for me is actually a non-fiction. It's by Dr. Neil Price of Uppsala Museum in Sweden. And he is a great leading figure, a scholar in Viking Age studies. And Children of Ash and Elm was not his first book. He's written about 2 or 3 other books, but this is his most accessible, and it's really a true overview of the Vikings as we know them, the people from Scandinavia in the Dark Ages. And it's just brilliant. It captures kind of the Proto-Germanic beginnings of the Vikings, as well as discussing who they were as a people, kind of myth-busting a lot of it as well. And it's just the perfect overview, all assembled into one nice, thick book. It's written so well, got such a nice, kind of smooth style to it. I've read Neil Price's his actual doctorate thesis, which was great, but obviously that's really dense. This is really tailored to people of all understandings, all knowledge.
So it's more
of
accessible.
Norse culture as well. So yeah, it's a great read. It's got amazing details. So I would honestly, I think if you like fantasy, if you like historical fiction, then you will love this, because it takes all those things that we love about those and just makes it real. It really talks about who these people actually were, and it makes them seem not so alien. So yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Awesome, and he worked on the Northman, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So brownie points there. My last honourable mention is the Silence of the Girls.
Brownies in the Dark Ages.
Oh, sorry. So maybe it's not been discovered. I'm not going to take this route.
Maybe.
The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker is my last honourable mention, and so Pat Barker's won the Booker Prize for writing. I forgot the third book, but in the Regeneration trilogy, which is about World War One, Secrets of Seeing Wilfred Owen. I've read book 1 and loved it, and this was the second book I read by her, and I prefer this even more. I loved it even more. The Silence of the Girls is a brilliant reimagining of the Trojan story that we I imagine all of us know, and it can get a bit old, can't it? It's a bit like the Arthurian legend that it's okay, we've seen this before, but then every now and then you read something that is just, it adds something fresh to it and it captures the magic of the tale. And this is beautifully brutal. Basically, it is a telling that focuses on the too often overlooked women in this tale, such as Briseis, and she is the main perspective in this, but she offers us a lens from someone who is on the Trojan side, and she's a noble, and she is then made a slave of Achilles. And it is amazing, the story that Pat Barker tells, the depth, and offering a different insight into characters like Agamemnon, Achilles, as I said, Patroclus, all of these, Odysseus as well. It was just fantastic how Pat Barker kept the magic of that tale, but offers something quite stark and brutal and breathtaking. And yeah, I just love the Silence of the Girls, and also the sequel was pretty awesome as well.
I always think you say Science of the Girls.
Yeah, it's not the Silence of the Girls. Silence.
That'd be a very different book. And the last one for me,
yeah,
which is actually my #1 read of 2021, Lonesome Dove. I was going to see how long I could go on with you drumming there.
Yeah, my hands were starting to hurt there.
Yeah,
already.
Anyway, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Now, this is a 1,000-page epic, which is really an odyssey. There you go, of the Wild West.
See what we did there?
Finding these characters who we have met in previous installments of Dead Man's Walk, as well as Comanche Moon, and these are these old rugged Texas Rangers who are best friends, who don't seem like they get on too well, but they, there's a lot of love for each other, and they decide to be the first men to drive cattle from Texas to the plains of icy Montana. And it is a story of love, it is a story of friendship, it is a story of being alone in the world and what it does to you, and it is a story that will stick with you for a very long time. It had me crying in the latter end of the book, where I'm probably, if I tried to read this again, there would be whole pages, whole chapters that are stained, and the pages have been blurred.
And it looks like a lamb's actually got to this. Did Edith?
A lamb literally did get to this. So not only has it been
Edith
cried upon, it has also been eaten.
She's had a bad track record.
But you hear the words Western. This is not like a Western film whatsoever. There's not like insane, gun twirling villains instead of moustache twirling villains.
Gun twirling.
But there's there's none of those. Meet me at high noon, kind of in the outside the saloon. Oh, that rhymes. Didn't it?
And you look like you could fit in that right now.
But if you like Joe Abercrombie, then this is, I think, where pretty much he gets his writing style from. Larry McMurtry kind of takes this little cast of characters, a little band, and then he just POV swaps between them just constantly, and they're so sympathetic, they're so funny. It is honestly, if you read the first 100 pages of this and you don't love it, then you're crazy.
Let's not get insulted.
Because,
well, Joe Abercrombie literally said in our interview with him,
yes, he did,
that he was inspired by Lonesome Dove.
When we spoke to Joe...
Oh, well, that never gets old, does it?
No. But yeah, I absolutely love this book so much. I think more and more people should go try it. It did win the Pulitzer Prize, so, it's a read that people should try, even if they're not into Western. Even if you haven't read the first 2 books of this, you would just absolutely love it, honestly.
And there's a programme with Robert Duvall, isn't there?
There is, yeah. It's quite an old programme. It's a little bit dated, but yeah, definitely read the book. But the programme's awesome too, but don't let it spoil what happens in the book.
Hopefully I'm going to read it this year.
Yeah, you better will. Honestly, you would absolutely love it.
So now, Ed, would you do me the honour of giving me a drum roll? Oh, advance. Before They're Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. I thought I'd do the same test as you then. Before They're Hanged by Joe Abercrombie is the second instalment of his first trilogy, the First Law trilogy.
What a nice edition you have.
It is. This actually arrived yesterday. So actually me and Ed recorded this video before, but then my phone had died, so
yeah,
the video disappeared.
This
so
is the second time
but this time the bonus is that I get to use this edition. So these are the spray edges. This is the broken binding subscription.
But he has moves in mysterious ways.
He does. Wow, his hand was in this. And yeah, it's a beautiful edition. And obviously, I read the book itself, I think, 16 years after it came out, and Before They're Hanged, 15 years after it came out. So obviously, I didn't have any hardcovers to hand.
14 years after
wow,
it came
yeah.
out. And then best of cover.
No, let's not get into all of that. But yeah, so now it's lovely to have some hardbacks. But anyway, more about the book. Before They're Hanged.
Why did you choose this one over the other two?
So the blade itself, I think, sets up the trilogy incredibly well. And again, as I said earlier, if there was that rule that if we weren't limited by the rule of one per author, I would have had the whole trilogy in my top 10. But I wanted to show some others. It would have been half the list, Joe Abercrombie. Yeah. So so Before They're Hanged is my favourite. It is that kind of group dynamic that you get in here. I won't say who because obviously it spoils the blade itself, but the group dynamic in half of it is done incredibly well. Where you want them to be friends, but the way it's done is so funny. Where they all think that they're better than the others, basically in one way or another, or they loathe themselves and think they don't deserve friends. And it's done in such an amazing way in this grimdark world where the characters, none of them are good, but you're still rooting for them. And then you've got some awesome action set pieces here. Some that I've seen in here chilled me to the bone, and it set my hairs on edge as well. It was so brilliant. I think the phrase is teeth on edge and hairs on end, but
well, I don't think Glockter would appreciate you saying teeth on edge, Will.
Oh, he's only got a few. He loves his porridge though, and Glockter is
porridge and honey. Everything's funny with porridge. Is it porridge and money? Isn't it? Is it porridge and honey?
No, porridge and honey. Porridge and honey.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe
porridge and honey. Something so yummy, everything's funny with porridge and honey.
Nice. And I think Glockter
warm and
really
runny.
comes...
Sorry,
warm and runny. Oh my goodness, Ed. He's really got caught onto this. But Glockter really comes into his own here as well. And I just think it's amazing that Joe ready for probably the 7th time I said it. He has something fresh to the genre. And yeah, I just love Before They're Hanged. I've not done it justice. I'm annoyed I didn't say better things about it. But yeah, Before They're Hanged, just fantastic. And so yeah, that is our list of the rest of our top 10 reads.
This video was so fresh, and you could squeeze orange juice from it.
Oof, nicely done, Ed. Ed, nicely done.
Cheers, mate.
But there we go. I hope that you enjoyed us talking about our top 10, whether the second half from 4 to 1, and our 3 honourable mentions as well. We snuck as many books as we could in there. So thank you. So if you can like and subscribe, if you really enjoyed this, if you want some more videos like this, we'll be doing probably a top 10 video a month.
And we should be doing a ranking of the First Law soon. So if you would like to see that, would you like us to talk about spoilers in it or not? Let us know in the comments below.
But thank you so much for watching. Ed, do you have anything more to add?
Truth and courage, everyone. Stay safe from the brothers Gwynne.
The brothers Gwynne.